In the fictional town of Hawkins, Indiana, a place repeatedly torn open by supernatural horrors, the most human monster the community ever created was a boy named Eddie Munson. To understand Eddie is to understand a much older and more common story than any tale of upside-down worlds or demonic creatures. It is the story of the scapegoat, a person burdened with the sins and fears of an entire group, cast out so that everyone else can feel clean, safe, and unified. Eddie's journey in Stranger Things is a perfect, heartbreaking map of this psychological process, showing how a society, when gripped by panic, needs a monster to blame more than it needs the truth, and how Eddie's face, his expressive, kind, and misunderstood face, became the canvas onto which the town projected all its dread. First, we have to look at where Eddie starts. He is the leader of the Hellfire Club, a group of outcasts who find family in playing dungeons. And he is loud, theatrical, and unapologetically himself. In the high school ecosystem of the 1980s, this immediately marks him as an outsider. He is labeled a freak long before any real crime occurs. This is the crucial first step in creating a scapegoat, dehumanization. A community cannot easily turn on one of its upstanding members. It needs someone already on the fringes, someone who looks and acts differently, someone who can be seen as other. Eddie fits this role perfectly in the eyes of the popular kids, the conservative townsfolk, and the anxious parents. His passion for fantasy role-playing games, which were the subject of a very real moral panic in the 1980s, provides the perfect mythology for people to fear him. They whisper that the games are satanic, that they warp minds. So when real, unexplainable violence hits Hawkins, the town's unconscious mind, its collective fear, already has a ready-made villain. They don't need to see a monster from another dimension, they have already decided what a monster looks like. It looks like Eddie Munson. Then, the terrible event happens. A young girl, Chrissy, is murdered in Eddie's trailer by the actual, supernatural villain, Vecna. But Eddie only sees the aftermath. He sees his friend lifted into the air, her bones snapped by an invisible force. He runs, not out of guilt, but out of pure, understandable terror. This act of running, however, is the spark that ignites the town's need for a scapegoat. Fear is a fire that needs to burn something. The police, led by the cynical and desperate Chief Powell, need a suspect to calm a terrified public. The parents need an explanation that is simpler than interdimensional psychic warfare. The students need to believe that the danger is a person they can catch, not a force they cannot comprehend. Eddie, by running, becomes that perfect target. His face, frozen in a scream of horror that someone captured on camera, is circulated everywhere. It is no longer the face of a scared kid, it becomes, in the town's narrative, the face of a killer. His poster is plastered everywhere with the word, murderer. The basketball team, the town's beloved jocks, turn hunting for him into a rallying cry, a way to be heroes. The community bonds over their shared hatred and fear of him. This is the core function of the scapegoat, it creates unity. By all agreeing that Eddie is the source of the evil, the people of Hawkins no longer have to face the chaotic, random, and truly monstrous reality. They have a name and a face for their pain, and that gives them a false sense of control. This is where the tragedy of Eddie's own face becomes so important. Because when we, the audience, follow Eddie into hiding, we see a completely different person than the monster the town has invented. We see his face express not malice, but overwhelming fear, confusion, and a deep, crushing sadness. We see his kindness as he protects and guides the younger kids who befriend him. We see his loyalty to his uncle, who is the only family he has. We see his courage, not the false bravado of a cult leader, but the genuine terror of someone who decides to do the right thing even while shaking in his boots. His face is open, his eyes wide with emotion. He cries, he shouts, he laughs with his friends. This is the real Eddie. The town's monster is a fiction, a cartoon they drew to simplify their complicated fear. The real Eddie is a deeply human boy who has been tragically misread. He is a scapegoat precisely because his true self, emotional, loyal, artistic, does not fit into the neat, clean, conformist ideal of 1980s small-town America. His appearance is a code they refuse to decipher, choosing instead to read it as a warning label. In the end, Eddie's story is about the ultimate cost of being the scapegoat. To prove he is not the monster they say he is, he has to become a hero in a literal, supernatural battle. He distracts the demonic bats in the Upside Down, buying time for his friends, knowing it is a suicide mission. His final act is one of defiant self-definition. He says he never ran away this time. He reclaims his narrative, but only in death, and only for the small group of true friends who knew him. To the town of Hawkins, he will likely always be remembered as the satanic cult leader who killed Chrissy, unless the truth somehow comes out. He dies as the scapegoat, sacrificing himself for the very society that vilified him. This is the final, brutal twist of the scapegoat psychology. Sometimes, the monster they create is forced to become the hero they never deserved, just to prove his own humanity. He has to die to show them he was alive. So, Eddie Munson's story is a powerful lesson about fear and belonging. It shows us that societies often need a common enemy to feel like a community. When faced with the unknown, it is easier to point a finger at the loudest, the weirdest, the most different person in the room than to confront a scary and complex truth. Eddie's face, which should have been seen for its vulnerability and expressiveness, became a wanted poster, a symbol of everything wrong. His tragedy reminds us to question the monsters our own communities create. Who are we blaming to make ourselves feel safe? Who is the Eddie Munson in our own world, being painted as a villain simply because they look or act or dream differently? The real monsters are rarely the ones we point to in a crowd. Sometimes, the real monster is the pointing finger itself and the collective sigh of relief that comes from having someone to blame, even if that someone is just a scared kid who never stood a chance.